Are you a social worker who's tired of being told that you're never going to make good money in your field? Do you have a ton of student loan debt from obtaining your degrees? Are you tired of being overworked and underpaid? Would you like to own your entire 24 hours a day and do only the work that you love? Would you like to improve the future of social work as a profession and a service? Well, if you said yes to any of those questions, keep watching. By the end of this video, you are going to see why I am so passionate about the seven-figure social worker movement. You're also going to see how this movement can not only help you gain career, financial, and time freedom, but how it can also change the future of social work and the profession as a whole. In this video, I'm going to share the why, what, where, and how of my seven-figure social worker movement. So let's get into it. Hi there, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Michelle V. Scott, and I am a social worker turned entrepreneur. I help other social workers like yourself go from being overworked and underpaid to owning your entire 24 hours by removing the frustration, overwhelm, and confusion associated with starting a clinical private practice or digital online business so you can feel at ease on your entrepreneurial journey as you gain more time, career, and financial freedom. If you are a social worker who is interested in gaining more time, financial, and career freedom, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything that is coming out on my channel. Now, before we jump in and discuss the why, what, where, and how of the seven-figure social worker movement, I want to cover first what I like to call the three narratives. Now, there are more narratives surrounding the social work profession and social workers as a whole, but these are three that I have seen come up quite often. They're pretty popular. I know that these are the narratives that people try to give to me, but I reject, I reject these narratives. And so let's dig right into these three narratives before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the seven-figure social worker movement, why I created it, what it's all about, and how it can help you and the profession as a whole. So, the first narrative is the underpaid social worker. And so, when I talk about narratives, I'm talking about the normalization of these narratives. And there's three that have been highly normalized. And one of the first ones is the underpaid social worker. And so, this narrative kind of gives the impression that it's okay, right? We go into school. I don't know about you guys, but when I was in my MSW program, I remember having a professor tell me, "You're not going to make any real money as a social worker." And I'm thinking, but you guys are, like I'm paying good money for this profession. And no one tells anybody else with an advanced degree, you will never hear an engineering program or a law program or someone going to school to be a medical doctor. And I get that social workers aren't necessarily doing those type of tasks, but hell, the work we do is very grueling. It can be very tough. It can be very mentally taxing. It can cause a lot of burnout, right? It's not easy work. A lot of people go into social work because they think, I don't have to take the GRE. It's going to be easy, easy breezy. And they find out really fast it's not as easy breezy as they think it is, right? It's really hard work. We deal with a lot of trauma. We deal with a lot of populations that other people don't want to deal with. We deal with a lot of issues that other people don't want to deal with, right? They turn away from these issues. If they see homeless people on the street, they might think, oh, so sad, too bad. But, maybe they'll give a donation. But overall, we have to really dig into the meat and potatoes of that kind of work. And so underpaid is, you know, not something that rested okay with me when I was in school. And when I started to go out and look at jobs, I remember I had a job offer me $31,000 a year. And I was thinking, okay, with a high school diploma, and I was working at a major insurance company, I was making 38,000 before I even went back to get my undergraduate degree, my associate's degree. So if I have a master's degree and $45,000 worth of debt to get that master's degree, which I don't have. Luckily, I was lucky enough to get a fellowship and pay nothing for my master's degree. Like, I was lucky in that way, but not everybody is, right? There's a lot of people who have accrued a lot of debt in order to obtain their social work degrees or whatever degrees they had prior to getting a social work degree, or the gamut, right? All of their degrees together that led up to them being a social worker. And so this narrative that, just sit down and accept this underpayment or these low wages did not sit okay with me. That was just something I rebuked that one. I was definitely not just going to go ahead and be okay with that. I get that we work with vulnerable populations, but there are ways to still earn a decent income while simultaneously helping vulnerable populations. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. The next narrative is the honorable social worker. And so, again, there's this narrative that if you go out and you work all these hours and you just give of yourself and give of yourself, you are considered an honorable social worker and will sing your praises. Anytime a social worker talks about making good money or being rich or possibly being wealthy, it's blasphemous. No, we have to, just like any other profession, just like anybody else, we have families we have to take care of. We have desires to own a home and take trips and do the things, right? And most people, when they go on for an advanced degree, these things are just considered par for the course. However, with social workers, for some reason there's this narrative that is honorable to work all of these hours and really just give of yourself and deplete yourself, and not be compensated for the services you provide. And I'm not hearing it. I'm sorry, I'm not hearing this. Okay. Um, we're going to get to more topics. I'm not going to go off on a tangent. I want to go off on a tangent, but I'm not going to go off on a tangent. But this is a narrative that's out there, and I call it the honorable social worker narrative. The next narrative that's very popular when we talk about being a seven-figure social worker, being a wealthy social worker, being a rich social worker is the traitor of the profession. And so that's how I like to term it. Oftentimes, when I talk about this seven-figure social worker movement, when I talk about creating wealth as a social worker, when I talk about really thinking outside the box in how you social work, right? One thing that I get is you're a traitor of the profession. We go into the profession. Typically, it's a calling for many of us. Many of us who go into the profession have lived an experience that really calls us to do the work, right? And that's great. I am definitely on board. I know what called me to do the work is my own personal experiences with social workers, my friends' experiences that I saw them living, definitely had a calling for the profession. But I'm not a traitor of the profession if I go out and create multiple streams of income. And so I might have a stream of income that allows for me to work with vulnerable populations, and I panel with health insurance, and I provide affordable quality health care to people. But that doesn't mean that that is the only stream of income that I can have. I can also potentially buy properties and rent them out to people, provide low income housing, provide housing for people who have higher incomes, right? And vulnerable populations are not the only people that need social worker services, right? So there's a plethora of wealthy people out there, corporations, even. Just a bunch of people who can utilize and benefit from our services that are not always poor or below the poverty line, right? And so I want you to think about this and really think about shifting a lot of these narratives. Now, there's more narratives out there than these three, but these are the three that are popular in the circles that I run in. These are the three that I saw a lot of social workers really kind of reaching for, they want to be the honorable social worker. I have sat at a table with social workers, and they kind of do this round table of, well, I work 3 jobs and I work 4 jobs and I worked 28 hours last week. And I'm thinking, it's only 24 hours in a day. So, are you familiar with these narratives? Have you heard them? Or are there other narratives that you're familiar with? And if so, I definitely want to hear what those narratives are. You can go ahead and leave it in the comment box and tell me if you've heard these narratives, if you buy into these narratives, or if there's a different narrative out there that you have heard that you want to be done away with as a social worker. So, why the 7-figure social worker movement? Well, as I mentioned, I believe social workers have a unique set of skills that have the ability to help plenty of people, right? So we look at person and environment. We work on 3 levels. We work on the micro, meso, and macro level, right? And so we're working one on one with clients. We're also working in between systems. And not only are we working in between systems, but there's many of us out there who are working to change the policies, right, that govern those systems. And so we have a very unique lens in which we move through our profession with. And that unique lens lends itself to the ability to create solutions for a lot of different people, right? And so, yes, vulnerable populations, that is the crux of the work that we do. But there are corporations who can definitely benefit from our skill sets, right? I have one of my podcast episodes is about there's 5 corporations, 5 industries that need social worker skills but don't even know it yet, right? And so you can be super creative in figuring out how to really bring in revenue to your business, or bring in revenue in a way that's not necessarily exploiting vulnerable populations. Oftentimes when I talk about the 7-figure social worker movement, because we work with vulnerable populations, because that's the narrative given to many social workers, they don't even think about creating programs for wealthy people, right? You have business executives out there, you have other entrepreneurs who run these multi-million-dollar businesses who could absolutely benefit from our skill sets, right? Maybe they need to do an edit on their life, right? Maybe they're an overworked entrepreneur and you can teach them about self-care, right? Because self-care is really touted, is huge in the social work ecosystem, right? And I think in order for us to really focus on self care, we need to stop living those first 3 narratives that I talked about, because that's not self care at all. And we really need to look at how we can utilize our skills, knowledge, talents, and areas of expertise to help other people who have the money to be able to pay a premium rate for our skills, knowledge, talents, and areas of expertise. Another reason why the 7-figure social worker movement, and I created it, is because there have been a lot of cutbacks, right? A lot of cutbacks to the donations that are given to various agencies. A lot of philanthropic cutbacks from people who just don't necessarily see the importance anymore of the behavioral health field, or the money that may need to come in. You see it with agencies all the time: budget cuts, budget cuts, budget cuts. And this lack of funding actually goes down to the vulnerable populations by having programs cut and things like that. And so I think as social workers, it's important for us to stop depending on outside people to hold up our profession. And so what do I mean by that? Well, we go around and we seek these donations and we do the things trying to get funding sources back into our profession, so we can do things like be able to have the funding sources there for the agencies, not just to provide the services to vulnerable populations, but to be able to pay social workers a livable wage that aligns with their education, right? That aligns with the fact that they have student loans. You can't, what is a social worker to do coming out making $31,000 a year, and you have a manager at McDonald's who's making 65? Like, there's nothing enticing about that situation. And so we really need to take that power back. And if we start to really heavily get involved in the digital online business space, if we start to create multiple streams of income, if we do strategies and engage in strategies that can help us become seven-figure social workers, we can also become philanthropic social workers as well. We can engage in philanthropy. And so that means having the resources to give money back to these agencies, to give money not only to the agencies to help with the vulnerable populations, and creating programs and services for those vulnerable populations, but to also be able to pay social workers a much better wage than what they are offering right now. And we really need to be the ones who stand at the forefront of doing that. We need to stop waiting on other people to save our profession, to save the programs and services that are so near and dear to our heart, that really is what we came into the profession to do, is help people, especially vulnerable populations. So, what is the seven-figure social worker movement? Well, it is just my way of creating awareness around the need to really take control of of the future of our profession. Now, am I a seven-figure social worker yet? No, I am not a seven-figure social worker yet, but there are strategies in place that I have been implementing to get there. And one thing about seven figures is, I remember reading a book. It says to become a millionaire, you have to have at least seven streams of income. And right now I am at four, touching on five potentially, because I am in the process of starting a restaurant with my cousins, which would be my fifth stream of income. But right now, I have four viable businesses where I bring in various revenue streams throughout my business, some with digital products, some with one on one work, others with my private coaching practice where I work with my plus size clients. I build websites for clinicians, not as much anymore, but definitely something that I still do. I still have projects out there that I'm working on. And so these are multiple streams of income. I am looking at right now properties to purchase so I can start having rental income. And so there are strategies that you can take to become a seven-figure social worker. All of them don't encompass, just doing that through your private practice or your digital online business, right? There are other endeavors that you can get into to make that happen. So, a big portion of the seven-figure social worker movement is me sharing this information. And so, where can you find this information? Where am I sharing it? Well, I'm sharing it right here on YouTube with the strategies that I give you for different business endeavors, right? Not only am I sharing it here on YouTube, I'm sharing it via my podcast. So, if you are not in the know, there is a podcast that I have called Swell, and it stands for the Social Work Entrepreneur Learning Lab, but it also stands for really growing your business, growing as a social worker, increasing your income, your impact, and your ability to promote change. Not only am I sharing it via Swell the podcast and this YouTube channel, I'm also sharing this information via my masterclass, my workshops, my courses that I have. It's very important to me that social workers shift this narrative that we have, again, of being underpaid, of being the martyr, of being the traitor to the profession if we happen to seek a better lifestyle than what we are currently living and have. So, how can you participate in the seven-figure social worker movement? Plug in, my friend, watch the YouTube videos, listen to the podcast, join my Facebook group and get in on the lives. And not only plug in that way, but start to talk about it yourself. Start to take action on your own behaviors that can help you become a seven-figure social worker. Share the movement with your friends, share the message. This is how you change narratives. This is how you change the future of the social work profession, not only to help vulnerable populations, to help future social workers who may not want to become entrepreneurs. See, this is the thing. Everybody's not meant to be an entrepreneur, and everybody should not be an entrepreneur. And the reason being is because without entrepreneurs, employees don't have jobs. And without employees, entrepreneurs do not have workers, right? They do not have staff to fill the positions that they need. So there is a symbiotic relationship between entrepreneurs and employees. And in order for us to help as entrepreneurs to help future social workers in the agencies, in order for us to ensure that the programs that we care about are there for the populations that we want to serve, it is definitely on us to really uphold our profession and to really get in the game to support our profession and support the people in it. And so it's very important that you plug in and you share, because as we normalize social workers making seven figures, we also normalize us being able to really uplift our profession and the populations we serve. So, does the seven figure social worker movement sound like something that you can get behind? If so, jump into the comments and tell me what excites you about the seven figure social worker movement. I'm curious to know how you would influence the profession and the available services by becoming a seven figure social worker. And if you like the thought of being a seven figure or philanthropic social worker, be sure to click the like button on this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell notification so you don't miss any content that I have coming down the pike. And if you're serious about becoming a seven figure social worker, be sure to take the pledge. The only way this movement will grow and afford future social workers a different way of life, along with the vulnerable populations they serve, is if you shift your mindset. And a great way to shift your mindset is to take action. And a great way to take action is to make the pledge. You're not only making the pledge to the movement, but to yourself. In the description box below, you can sign up to take the pledge, and you will get a certificate that you can hang to remind you that you are working towards becoming a seven figure social worker. This certificate is a great way to remind yourself that you can be a catalyst of change and that you are making moves to be that change agent. Of course, if you have any questions regarding this video or any other video for that matter, please feel free to sign up for a meet and greet, because I'm getting to know you, you're getting to know me, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. You can find the link to the meet and greet in the description box below. I have several that I offer during the week, and so I hope you sign up, and I look forward to seeing you there. On next week's Masterclass Monday, I am going to discuss how you can become a seven figure social worker. So, not only what the movement is, but how you can become a seven figure social worker. That is right. I'm going to share the strategies that myself and several other social workers I know personally are taking to become seven figure social workers. Until next time, this is your girl, Michelle, saying, stop waiting. The time is now. Start your private practice or business. Bye for now.